In this video, I want to go over how important the dew point temperature is. The dew point temperature, especially when you're inside, is more important than the air temperature. And even if you're outside, a lot of the times the dew point temperature can be more important than the air temperature. And in this video, I want to explain why. So dew point is the amount of water vapor there is in the air. The dew point is a measure of absolute humidity. If you are on iOS 14 or an older system, then it only gives you relative humidity. But if you're on iOS 15 and after, they give you the absolute humidity, which is the dew point. It's actually really how much water vapor is in the air, and it's a certain weird number for it, but it's not important. What matters is the actual number. So if the dew point is below 40, the air is too dry outside, and you're going to need lip balm if you want to go outside. If it's in the 40s, then the air feels a bit dry, but it's generally relatively okay. And in the 50s, that's what people say is perfect. However, once you get to the upper 50s, you can begin to feel a heat index, although in practice, the real heat indexes come in when the dew point hits the 60s. Then, when the dew point is 61 and 65, that's when it feels slightly humid. 66 to 70 is when the air will begin to feel a little bit oppressive. When the dew point is between 71 and 75, the air begins to feel tropical. And when the dew point is above 75, it's miserable outside. A lot of the times the dew point can be determined by the low temperature, but this is not an exact calculation, and there's definitely exceptions to the rule, but a lot of times you can gauge this. That's why warm nights can often be particularly miserable. When Miami recorded its warmest night on July 14, 2019, the low temperature was 84. The heat index was in the low 90s all night, so if you didn't have AC, it was very, very, very hard to sleep. That's because the dew point was kept in the mid to upper 70s. New York City, just a week later, had a dew point of 79 degrees. 79 degrees is honestly impressive even by Florida standards, because by the time the dew point gets to 79 degrees, the air is feeling so miserable. As the dew point gets higher, it becomes hard to sweat. It's so hard to sweat that it can severely exacerbate the real feel. At a dew point of 80, for example, a 99 degree air temperature will feel like 120 degrees. So that's kind of how the dew point works if it's extreme. However, if you have an 80 degree dew point and that's also the air temperature, so there's a thick fog going around, then it would only feel like 89. The heat index value only really starts to kick in the upper at 80, although it does also work in the upper 70s, and arguably it can be felt as low as the mid 60s. But then it's only a degree or two. So that's my little thing about heat index. So what makes the dew point more important than the air temperature? A lot of times when I decide what to wear, I typically wind up basing it more so off the dew point than the actual air temperature. Of course, the air temperature is relevant, but in my opinion, the dew point is more relevant than the air temperature. So, for example, if you're inside and let's say that it's frigid outside, you have a low of about 5 degrees and a high of about 20-ish. Well, if it's that cold outside, then inside, first of all, inside is probably going to be kept down to the mid to low 60s rather than room temperature, which is about 70. because they'll often be asked to turn down their thermostats to conserve energy. And I'm telling you, when you're in the house, a few degrees makes a difference. If it's 51 degrees in your house, for example, then you're practically begging for 3 layers, going under like 10 blankets. It's pretty hard to be in a 51 degree house, whereas being outside in 51 degrees, I'll definitely say, is a lot easier. And if you are in, say inside, the dew point, it'll make it feel colder than it actually is. And it'll also begin to have this effect of you getting, of everything getting chapped. Unless you have a humidifier in your school, which, a building, which should have the dew point be kept to about 50, I'd say, you're kind of screwed over. You need humidifiers, not just heat, but humidifiers to keep the dew point up. However, a low dew point is something that everyone craves in the summer. I can honestly go outside in sweatpants, with short sleeves of course, when, even in the mid-80s, when the dew point is low. Obviously, it's best when the dew point happens to be in the upper 40s, but it wouldn't be unbearable as long as that dew point is kept below 60. Once the dew point rises above 60 though, I need to start factoring in the heat index into how hot it's actually going to feel when I go outside. Because I've learned my lesson, even if it's chillier outside, or not really chillier, less hot outside, if the dew point is really high, it'll exacerbate that heat index, and especially inside, it's going to feel like internal hell. So, I remember those days, because this summer in New York it was very hot, but it wasn't particularly humid at all. So it was bearable a lot of the days. But then, of course, the converse also has to happen. When it's, say, only 80 degrees, but let's just say it's very humid, dew points are hovering around 70, that would, number one, create a heat index value that is in the mid-80s. It would, number one, create a heat index value that's in the mid-80s. Number two, it would become hot inside the school. Without any AC, what's actually going to happen is that the air temperature is going to rise up to meet the dew point, because the dew point can never be higher than the air temperature. And at 70 degrees, that's not so much so of a concern, but it becomes a problem when, say, the dew point is 75. Then inside the school it becomes 75, the heat index becomes 77, and it becomes miserable, especially when you're all cramped together. So that always has to come into the equation as well. So putting all that to the side, the other thing is that, obviously there's stuff in between that too. So, like, for example, to me at least, if, let's just say you have a situation where, I don't know, you have it be, say, like 82, then for me, obviously, where I would start to wear pants or shorts, it would be somewhere in between that. Because obviously, there's land between the extremes. It all depends. And if I have ample AC, then I don't really care about the heat index values anyway. So, here are my suggestions to you, because I know that you've been hearing me on my spiel. So, always wear shorts if you're in an inside place where you don't know if the AC is going to be on and you can't control it. If the dew point is above 68, with only one exception. If, let's just say, it's like pouring rain outside, you don't want to be wearing shorts outside in that. So in that case, especially because it'll drag the temperature down, I would say you could probably wear pants if you have a light t-shirt on. When I wore long sleeve and pants in the school, I remember one of the times it was just so unbearable in there that I didn't wear long sleeves for quite a while after that. Now, the other time what happened, it was somewhat bearable because the teachers did have their AC on. It wound up getting to 81 and feeling like 86, and possibly even 82 and feeling like 87. The dew point values hit, I believe, 71 degrees. The low that day was about 69 degrees due to a cold front coming in at midnight, but the morning low was in the low 70s. And then the temperature began to rise, but it was just so ugly in the morning. And I really expected it to rain. It was actually kind of drizzly in the morning. And I remember the day before when I went outside, it did feel kind of cool. Although I did wind up in the end being grateful that I wore sweatshirt and shorts. Not that I'd take the sweatshirt off, but I just felt more prepared that way. So meanwhile, if it's like warm, but you have a low dew point, then I would say don't completely wear your heaviest summer wear. I would just say, if you have a low dew point, just look at the factors. And that's the only true answer to any of this, that you always need to be looking at the factors. Also, I think if I keep swinging, I'm going to eventually throw up.